Hello, my name is Peyton Clancy Fairbanks, and I work with Cornerstone Real Estate. This is your update for news for this week. Specifically, I wanted to focus on investors and investing in Utah. So, this first article, Why the Road is Getting Even Rockier for First Time Home Buyers. There's a couple of things I really wanted to bring up in it. The first of which being about 2.5 million households will be shut out from buying a home this year, about 15% of all first time home buyers. Why this is important is that less people that can afford a home is less people in the buying pool. Less people in the buying pool is less demand that's going on. So we have to be aware that this is happening. And the second part of this, I'm going to read this whole thing, and it's got a little bit of race stuff in it, but don't worry. I kind of want you to just focus on the stats that matter. A map compiled by Mecklenburg County, which includes Charlotte, shows a sea of dots, Charlotte, North Carolina, shows a sea of dots signifying corporate ownership throughout the area. The exception is a pie slice shaped segment extending out from downtown Charlotte, the historically wider, wealthier neighborhoods, often referred to as the wedge. More than 93% of homes purchased by corporations as of May 2021 were bought for under $300,000. Many of them were in predominantly black neighborhoods. I don't want you to notice that because of the race stuff, but I want you to notice that those investors were specifically targeting the cheaper homes in the area and they were pushing out those first time homebuyers. That's who they were especially competing with. Why is this? Because investors want those cheaper properties. Investors want to be able to get into homes as cheap as possible so that they can make more profit or make it so they can expand their portfolio. There's a million different tactics for investors. I don't know what all of them are, but trying to buy the cheapest home possible seems like a pretty basic one. So these investors are especially pushing out these first time home buyers and making it so those first time home buyers all have to start renting. And so going into the second stat, real estate investors bought 18.4% of all homes sold in the United States in 2021, uh, up 12.6% a year earlier. These areas especially include places like Charlotte, Jacksonville, Las Vegas, and Phoenix. And so why is this important? We're not seeing it as much here in Utah. We're not seeing as many people that are coming out and buying a whole bunch of homes in Utah. And I'll kind of go over that here in just a second as well. But when you do start seeing it, once we do see it in other places, they're pushing out these first time home buyers, and these first time home buyers have to go into renting. And when they start renting with these corporate landlords, which is totally fine. Also, keep in mind that 18.4% actually represents anybody that has one or two rentals to somebody that has over 1,000 rentals. So keep that in mind. But corporate landlords more likely to increase rent in Atlanta, Georgia. Corporate landlords are 68% more likely to file eviction notice. What they're specifically doing is taking out any humanity in renting. I don't mean that as a positive or a negative thing, but just something to be aware of. You're going to start seeing a lot more people who are getting kicked out of homes, especially people with less money and stuff like that. And it's going to be harder and harder for them to rent. And it's going to be harder and harder for them to find rentals that they can afford. And they won't have the option to buy a house. And so all of this kind of goes down just to the fact that be aware that when investors do start coming in, that's where they're going to be targeting. And that decreased demand from buyers is going to make it so that it will change the market slightly. But next, we start jumping into this next article. How prevalent are investors in Utah housing market? Not as you may think. This article is old, but I wanted to go to it because it kind of shows a kind of interesting point specifically for Utah. This article is from July 7th of 2021. Utah investor owners is below the national average. So less owner investors are buying homes in Utah than typically in the nation. Why is this? It's because Utah home prices are high. In Utah County, they're like $460,000 or like $550,000 average right now. So it's harder to get in on that cheaper price point. So Salt Lake City near the bottom, only 1% owned by institutional investors. Institutional investors are usually people who own more than 100 investments. And so we aren't seeing as much of this losing humanity in Utah. We aren't seeing as much of, corporate landlords increasing rent every year, corporate landlords evicting more people, which good or bad, I don't have any idea, but it is a trend that we need to be aware of and understand. Why do I bring this article up saying that there's less investors in Utah, especially corporate investors? Corporate investors, people like Zillow, Open Door, BlackRock, all those funds that have a whole lot of money, is because now I look at this last article, Brinkman Real Estate Ogden acquisition announced. And this is specifically talk about Brinkman Real Estate, which is a large firm outside of Denver that is coming to Utah and starting to buy up a lot of homes here, multifamily units more specifically. And now I can't get the exact stats from this, but let me read you this real quick. Chloe's Point represents the company's third acquisition in as many months, bringing this year-to-date investment volume to nearly 70 million, trending above the last year's total of 160 million. And so that Chloe's Point is in Payson, Utah, which they invested in earlier. This isn't even talking about the investment that they're going to be making in Ogden, Utah. So we can say that institutional investors are pumping in tens of millions of dollars right now. So be aware of it. Why is this happening? Strong population and job growth. What is the strong population? We've gained 1.7% population, as you saw in my last video, since last July, like 60,000 people since last July. And the job growth here is really strong. Not only did we gain back the 8,000 jobs that were lost during the coronavirus, but we actually added 5,000 on top of that. And then elevated prices pushing rental demand. And so this goes right back to those other points that as prices keep going up and as buyers are starting to be priced out, you're going to see more and more people that are needing to rent, and more people needing to rent in this area that has strong population growth and strong job growth. Makes it so that there's going to be more rentals, more multi-units, and that's why institutional investors are probably going to start being drawn to this place more. I don't want you to be scared of this. I don't want you to think institutional investors are good or bad. I just want you to be very aware of all of these things that are starting to happen, and understanding what the institutional investors actually look like in places like Phoenix, because you hear it all the time. Everybody's like, these institutional investors, Zillow, they're ruining it. But we haven't seen really those effects in Utah as much as they've been seeing in places like Phoenix or in Charlotte and stuff like that. But they are coming because they're going to start noticing that this is a really nice, beautiful area. Lastly, I think that especially in Ogden, it was in 2021, it was 3% of buyers were Californians. And so it's not near the 10% or 20 or 100% that a lot of people are acting like, but those Californians were coming in and buying up these properties. And there was right around 3% of them that were the buyers. I saw that in an economic forecast. A lot of these stats I've been getting from these economic forecasts. And so I hope this helps you out. Help you understand kind of the investor portion of this a little bit better, more in depth. If you do have any questions, please feel free to reach out to me, shoot me a text. I'll have you have my number. If you do know anybody looking to buy or sell a house, I'd really appreciate you bringing up my name. But that's all I got for today. So talk to you in a bit. Bye-bye.